Welcome to this episode on the Health and Happiness Show, where it's my mission to change your mindset so that you can live a healthy and happier life. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Let's go. Hey guys, it's Ollie here, and welcome back to another episode on the Health and Happiness Show, where today I'm joined by an incredibly special guest. He is known as the world's leading transformation specialist, host of the Shreddin8 Show, and creator of 8-week programs Shreddin8 and Sculptin8. With a background in property, he made the jump from selling houses to selling the solution to getting shredded with his programs, and has since helped thousands of lives all around the world. Despite all of his success in the fitness industry, what I really respect about this guest is how humble and down to earth he is, and I want to thank him for taking the time out of his crazy schedule to come on the show today. It is therefore with great pleasure and excitement that I welcome to the show, Charlie Johnson. Charlie, how are you, my friend?
Yeah, good. Thank you very much. And I have to say, as far as intros go, that's probably the best intro I think I've ever had. So 10 out of 10 is that one, Ollie.
That's very kind of you to say. So I want to dive straight in because, when I was doing my research on you, we found similar interests in the sense of, I know that two of your favorite things are traveling and eating out.
Yeah.
So therefore I have to open up the podcast with A, what is the best country you've been to and why? And then B, what is like your go-to meal out?
Best country I've been to, I don't think you can really narrow that down specifically because I like different places for different things. There's like an all-round place. I quite like Dubai because it's a bit of me where you can do what, like, the gyms are awesome, the food's awesome, it's hot, and it's like someone said to me before you went there, like Dubai is like the best of the best, and I would think that's fair. So I think like an overall experience, I like Dubai, but then I also like Canada's probably the most beautiful in terms of scenery I've been. That or South Africa, and then the only other place I'd probably mention would be Thailand, which I'm a big fan of because the people there are so nice, and again I like food. So yeah, they'd probably be my top choices. In terms of like an eating outside of things, like I go through phases of things. So the big thing that I'm into, which again is reasonably healthy, is like Turkish food and like sort of like Lebanese, so like grilled meats. I'm a bit of a bread fanatic. So like those for me would be the real ones I go to because I find, again, like my body will digest and assimilate those foods pretty well, and I won't feel like horrendous. Whereas like in the weekend, we went out for a meal with the guys who work for me, and we went and had like nachos, burgers, a bit of like ice cream, and my body weight shot up 3 kilos in a day, which was pretty much all just inflammation and water weight, where my body just doesn't like processed stuff.
So look, I want to touch a little bit about your property lifestyle, okay? So you got into the fitness industry a couple of years ago. I know you've been doing it a long time anyway, but prior to that, your career was in the property. And I guess what I want to ask is, what made that transition from property into fitness?
That's a good question. I think, so initially, to take things back, I initially went into personal training first when I was about 18. I then went and did a ski season in France because around the fact I'm a qualified ski instructor, again, go to my travel theme. And then I came back and I was like, look, I wasn't really enjoying PT beforehand because I didn't really have the avatar client I wanted to train at that point. And so I was like, look, let's call it a day with that. Let's go into get a proper job, be an adult, and move on from there. So I went into a state agency, and it turned out I was pretty good at that. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the sort of addictive nature of being like competitive with other people you work with and the environment of that, and that really sort of excelled me. And I went within about 2-3 years, I actually ended up managing a branch there when I was only like 23, 24 at the time, which, like, looking back now, was crazy. I had way more responsibility than I should have done at that age, and I was way too experienced for that. But you learn, and I learned very quickly. And I think the skills that I learned from that process and that career, I wouldn't be able to do what I do now because it very much gave me that mindset of being very organized and very thorough in like terms of like what you should do. Like these were, so the 6 things I had to do every day. These were the key things that would get me the deal, so in property, to make sure I earn my commission. It's the same way now in terms of where I run my business. It's like, these are the core components I have to do every single day. If I do these, I'll be successful. So for me, for example, it'd be like posting Instagram, helping my clients get good results, make content to help people, send out emails, those sort of things. And it's just being aware and identifying those sort of patterns, because success leaves clues, and like, respectfully, it's not rocket science what I do. It's just repeating the process and being relentless in the pursuit of that, if that makes sense. Because I think the reason a lot of people get maybe into this industry, or when they start a fat loss journey, they get disheartened because they don't necessarily get to where they want to be after 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Like, I get disheartened now and frustrated for no reason sometimes, because that's just the way life is. And like, even if once you've achieved a goal and you've climbed a mountain, you want to go look at the next mountain because there's a bigger mountain somewhere else you need to go and climb, like to give it on a travel analogy. So that's very much like the way my mind thinks. And I think you have to become very self-aware of yourself, because if you don't become self-aware, you're almost constantly chasing the impossible, which is you're chasing like the horizon. Because like once you start to get 80% there, you've got a new goal. Once you get there, you've got a new goal. And like that can ultimately lead to unhappiness. And what we really want to do is think about, okay, what actually fulfills me and makes me happy. So when I was like 18, training those people then wasn't making me happy. But what I do now does make me happy, because I get to see the joy and success people have in like transforming their own lives, like, as you do. And I get to have a positive influence on the world en masse, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that's really valuable, because essentially sometimes you have to go through the shit basically before you get to the other end, right? Like, and I think even in a weight loss sense, like people think it's going to be all rosy, but like dieting sucks, right? But the reward at the end of it is the reward. But you have to go through the shit first to get to that point. And I think even in a career sense as well, it was interesting to hear, and even the word frustration there, self-awareness. Talk to me a little bit about how we become more self-aware, not in necessarily a weight loss sense, but actually just in terms of our mindfulness. And actually, really powerfully, you said like, the next mountain isn't necessarily going to lead to happiness. So how do we create that awareness in our life that's ultimately going to create the greatest amount of happiness?
I think that really comes down to like objectifying what do you want. Like, and I say this to everyone, like what is the end vision? Is it like in reality, there's only so much money you can spend, obviously, like within reason. Like, there's only so many countries you can travel. Like, what do you actually want? Like, so what's the perfect goal for you in 5 years' time, Ollie? Where do you want to be? Like, that's the way I think is in my head. Okay, this is the life I want to have at 35. That's the house I want to have. This is the car I want to drive. This is the amount of work I want to do. And like, that's the way I try and think, and then reverse engineer back from there. So, okay, this is where I want to be. How can I get myself into that position then? And like, one of the things that I like about that then is you've got like an end goal that you're working towards, and the end goal doesn't really matter within reason, but it's almost like enjoying the process of getting to the end goal and enjoying the ride. And that's what life is about. It's enjoying the ride and learning, and like making sure that what you are doing, you are happy doing, and it gives you fulfillment and enjoyment. So for me, like, I've always loved like fitness training, learning more about fitness and training, nutrition. I'm getting big into longevity now as I'm getting older, sadly. So me learning more about these things is what gives me fulfillment and happiness. And that also then helps me with my business as well, because that's what I do for a living, is help people in those areas. So it's very much, I think you need to look at, okay, where do I want to go? And then reverse engineer back from that. Okay, what are the steps I need to do on a daily basis? Like this step today, tomorrow, this week, this month, this year, they'll then accumulate to you to become the person you want to be in 5 years' time, if that makes sense.
100%. Just to the listeners, if you're listening to this in 2050, then Charlie may be old, but like Charlie, I'm pretty sure like you're like 30, 31, right?
30, yeah, 30.
Right. He's
Don't
not
give
old.
me that 31 yet.
Right. So that's the point. But okay, this is a perfect avenue to go down. Speak to the listener then who is in their 60s, maybe listen to this, right? And actually who think it's too late, right? Is it too late? Have they missed the boat? What do they then do? People who have perhaps lost hope in their later life, even though 60 is still young, but like, how do we change that mentality? Because essentially mindset is a mentality, right? How do we make that change?
You need to remove your self-limiting beliefs, because in particular with the situation we've had at the moment with coronavirus, like everyone's world has changed in 4 months, and that can be for the good or for the bad. Like personally, like opening up when this first kicked off, I was like, crap, this is a business problem to deal with. Like, all my clients can lose their jobs, don't have any money. I'm like, this is gonna be awesome. And then I was like, no, look, take control of the situation, be a leader, show everyone what you're about. Like, this is time to like make an opportunity of this, not become a victim of it. And that's very much the way people need to think, is like, you think how much your life probably changed the last 4 months. Like, think how you can change your life again for a positive in 4 months' time. So the only excuse you have is like, oh, I'm too old, I don't have time. Like, it's an excuse. You can change anything you want. Even if you're 60 years old, like, I heard this, I'm not going to pretend that I'm intelligent enough to have stolen this. I heard this on a podcast the other day, and someone was saying that, like, if you want to live to 120, it's relatively straightforward. It's four things we need to avoid. It's cancer, Alzheimer's, diabetes, and
Heart disease, is it?
Heart disease. That's four of them. And like when someone starts to like break these things down for you, and like, oh, I could live to 120, so I'm 30. I've got 90 more years. That's pretty cool. So then you're suddenly like, okay, I'm in control of my own destiny. And if I have to avoid these four things, so if you're listening to this and you're 60 years old and you're concerned, oh, I'm running out of time, you could have 60 more years left here if you play your cards right. And you playing your cards right is your own conscious choice to do so. It's whether you're willing to take action and like maybe reach out to help from someone to learn to get to where you want to be, to make sure you do get to 120, which is my goal, and to make sure you do actually start to lead the life you want to live.
Was it Dave Asprey's podcast by any chance?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Have you read his book? Have you read his book Superhuman?
No, but after I listened to that, I need to buy it. I've got way too many books to read, but I need to buy it. Is it good?
Very, very good book. And he just talks about the four killers, which, that's very, very good. I think, that's cool. That's powerful. So, number one, if you're 30 and we're speaking to the 6-year-old, you've got twice your life. How do you maximize time day by day, right? Like, you're a busy guy. I know that. I know we get 24 hours in a day. Maybe what are some of the habits, the routines that you have that drive your success whilst also protecting your own health?
So I think the simple thing is that, like, I'll be straight up. I'm inherently very lazy, and people might not believe that, but that laziness makes me want to become very efficient because I don't do things unless I actually have to do them. If you ask my wife, she'll testify to that. And she won't listen to this, we're right. So what I try to do is I try to do things that are almost like evergreen tasks. So things that once I've done them once, that I know are going to be automated and keep going forever, or I can do something once that's going to have a big knock-on effect. So like really try and go after the big tasks that make the most difference to me. That would be my best overall general advice. But even comes down to small things. So like time is very valuable for me. And like, I know we mentioned like I both are joint enough for food, but like meal prepping for me, I eat like 6 times a day. It's monotonous and time consuming. Hence why I use a company, My Lunchbox, who now send me out like pre-cooked like chicken and steak or whatever I want. And again, that saves me an immense amount of time every week, which even if I don't decide to use that time just to go for a walk or whatever, just give me some headspace. That hour of headspace is so valuable sometimes because we live in such a fast-paced world where we get so wrapped up in like constant stimulation from phones, emails, Instagram. Like everyone thinks like we live in this world of like fast, do more mentality, when in reality, we actually would do better sometimes if we actually consciously slowed ourselves down rather than trying to speed up all the time, because otherwise we're almost like one of those erratic Energizer Duracell bunnies that are running around all like the headless chicken. So you need to try and like direct your energy into like the direct avenue, which is going to give you the most reward, if that makes sense.
100%. I want to go down a slightly different direction. You mentioned there about the coronavirus and how that was a potential threat to your business, as it was to everyone's, let alone our health. But I want to talk about challenge and adversity. I'm a big believer in life that pain becomes purpose, and it's our struggles that become our strength. So I want to ask, what struggles have you had to overcome in your 30 years of age? And how has that made you? Because look, I'm listening to the way that you speak, the language that you're using, and these are all traits of a mindset. And this is what this podcast is about, is changing your mindset. So what are some of the challenges that you've had to overcome that have made you stronger today?
It's a very interesting one. There's a few. I have a massive, not inferiority complex, but when I was younger, I was very introvert. I'm not actually an extrovert person, which people probably wouldn't realize. Bear in mind, like, oh, you're on social media, you do YouTube and podcasts and all this stuff. It's like, that's not naturally who I used to be. So I used to lack massively self-confidence. And I used to be very conscious of the way I looked, my body, just everything. I really lacked self-confidence from probably 15 to 25, and that had a very negative effect on me maybe fulfilling my potential of what I can achieve. And that was probably the biggest challenge I had, and what held me back the most, to be honest with you, is the fear that I couldn't achieve what I wanted, and also being concerned too much with other people's opinions sometimes. So people were like, oh, why Charlie started posting on Instagram, why he's doing this, like, you've changed. And like, in reality, people need to accept that if, so for example, Ollie, you want to become the best version of you, then you need to change. Like, people constantly are changing and evolving. I'm constantly changing and evolving. I'm not the same person I even was probably 4 or 5 months ago at the start of lockdown. I'm not the same person I was 12 months ago. Like, these things, and like, us as human beings will change over time, as we are an accumulation of our experiences through life that change us. In terms of big struggles, I've had nothing in terms of like a one-off, like horrendous tragedy or anything like that, but it would just be, I think the biggest thing I've struggled with is self-confidence when I was younger. And now again, even with what I'm doing now, sometimes self-doubt, and you think like, I have a bit enough more that I can chew here all the time. And your biggest battle is with yourself. And I put this in my Instagram story the other day, just saying it's like, no matter who you are, whoever you look up to, whether it be, I don't know, David Beckham, Cristiano Ronaldo, or Arnold Schwarzenegger, they all have self-doubts. Like, everyone has self-doubts, and that's okay. But it's how you become aware of those and how you control those, and like trying to have like positive people to maybe flush those ideas about, or anything you have doubts about with, makes a big difference. And I think when people tend to bottle up their own doubt and fear, it turns into anxiety, and then again that like almost gives them like a stranglehold, where then they like, oh, I can't go and, I don't know, become a personal trainer, I can't lose weight because my other half says I can't do it, and I always try and fail. And if you start to like believe these things that you hear, like, then that's what's going to happen. In reality, you can achieve anything you want, but you just have to have the right mindset to do so, and be aware of that. Because like, the worst thing I see is when people are like, oh, I can't play guitar, for example. It's like, I could learn to play guitar if I wanted to. I just haven't put the time to do it. You just have to apply yourself and use the right language, and you can do anything you want within reason.
Yeah, I really relate to that. Being the introvert, being the person that used to get and hate, to be paid for PE at school, like, it's hard. Like, I think introversion is a different angle, like, in terms of, I think you just got more challenges in terms of life. Do you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
growing up, you can be sheltered as an introvert, and then when you go into the big world, like, you need to be more extroverted in the workplace with clients, whoever. Like, even on a podcast sense, one of the reasons why I launched the podcast was like, Ollie, get out your comfort zone, right? Speak to more people. And I think just stepping into the unknown sometimes can be the greatest reward. So, comfort zones, what scares you, Charlie?
Fear of failure, like, just not not. I think it was Ed Milet who said it, and it's like, the day you die, you get to meet the version of who you could become.
Ooh.
Like, that is some creepy shit when someone says that to you. And I was like, that's always sticks in my head a bit. And I just want to maximize the potential of who I am and who I think I can be, and help and support those around me, and see as how much of a positive influence I can have on them. Because like, my family loved me, but when I was growing up, they would like, I don't know, take the piss out of me for going to the gym or all this other stuff, or when I started doing social media, like, everyone wants to take the piss out of me. And it's one of those things, like, stuff like that can really have a very negative effect on people, because then that could have stopped me doing what I do now if I decided to listen to them. And it's one of those sad realities that often the people who are closest to us are the ones who want to hold us back most, because they want to try and protect us and keep us safe. When in reality, like, we need to go out there into danger, and like, within reason, obviously not right in front of a truck, but like, go and do things and put yourself out there to learn. Because like, you either win or you learn. There's no other thing about that. If you go and try something and it fails, then okay, you learn that didn't work, let's go try something else. Like, there's always another shot, if that makes sense.
So your biggest fear is failure. Then flipping that, then the opposite to failure would therefore be success. What does success look like for you, right? So you've got to your last day, right? You have died. Sorry to say that. I know it's deep, for a Wednesday afternoon. You've died, and you're meeting that version of yourself. Like, what does success look like for you? How do you have to leave this world one day?
So for me, like, in terms of personal success, like, from a selfish side of things, first thing I always wanted to be able to do was do what I want, when I want, with who I want, to have complete freedom. When I worked before in a corporate job in property, not being able to do that was quite frustrating. And probably one of the most empowering moments of my life that always stick with me is because they were a bit of a ruthless corporate company and the way they worked, I used to get paid like only 50% of my salary on commission. So if you hand in your notice for the last month, you basically get paid, you don't get paid the commission, you get paid, basically paid 50%. So I was like, sod that. So literally I was waiting until I got paid. They got paid, just walked straight out. So I'm not going back. And then I left and my boss called me and she's like, oh, you can't do this. You have to come back. And I was like, no, I don't. And that in my head was probably one of the most empowering moments of my life, because I suddenly like, you can actually do whatever you want. No one can actually really tell you what to do. You just have to listen to them and believe them. So that really like let the penny drop and was like, okay, if you're willing to stand on your own 2 feet and go out there, put yourself out there and work relentlessly hard, you can live life on your own terms, but you just have to be willing to do it. So that'd be the first thing, like from a selfish side of things. The second thing I would personally like to do is that I was overweight when I was younger, and that's something that I want to try and help as many people to overcome as possible. And I know Boris Johnson's got a war on fat in the UK now, and like a load of waffle about that. But in the reality of things, like obesity is getting much worse in the UK consistently. And that's something that I would like to try and help people to avoid, because it is 100% avoidable, as is type 2 diabetes, which again is one of the 4 killers on the list we mentioned. Like these things, again, it's not rocket science, but people just need to be able to guided, educated, and shown how to do it. And everyone can live a healthy and happier life. And that for me was something I'd like to have impact on longer term and on a greater scale. So something I spoke about on my podcast before is like, I'd like some way to get into almost like education or kids or something like that to help them at the earlier stages so they get these good habits. But really it comes from home, from their parents.
Education is empowerment, right? Like, you know, like the reason why you're able to get anyone in good shape is because you're educated. And I think that's it. Education is that key that's going to unlock the door for greater health and happiness in people's lives. That's cool. Okay, so your world famous program, Shreddin8 Sculptin8. I have 8 quick fire questions for you, okay, to tie in with the 8-week theme, okay? I think I know a couple of the answers to these, but I'll see if I'm right. Are you ready?
Shoot.
Okay. Cats or dogs?
Cats.
Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Favorite alcoholic beverage?
Gin.
Best book you've read for mindset?
Atomic Habits.
Best book you've read for business?
Oh, one of the Russell Brunson books. I'm not sure which one it's called.
Best book you haven't read yet?
Oh, that's probably that Superhuman book by Dave Asprey. I need to buy that. That sounds sick.
Best piece of advice you've ever received?
Do it now.
And finally, if you had one superpower, what would it be?
To freeze time.
Oh, very good. Very good. Cool. Okay, Charlie, before I ask my last question, where can the listeners find out more about you online, and what is next for you as well?
Okay, so to find out more about me, I've got a podcast, The Shredder Show. So we have loads of cool guests on that. So there's loads of educational content. Instagram's Charlie Johnson Fitness, very easy. YouTube's Charlie Johnson Fitness. Same for Facebook, very straightforward. In regards to what I have future for me, is just to try and, again, continue my mission to try and help people as much as possible around the world. So be with the Shreddin8 programs, a great program for people to first get into fitness, because it's quite a low cost barriers of entry. It's just £37 a month. So get a fully customized diet and training program for that. So that works really, really well for people to get in who are a bit cautious or nervy about committing to like a one-to-one coaching program. So that's one thing I'm looking to try and keep building upon. I've got a really exciting new system that'll be coming out for that in the next week or two, which is given me some technological challenges recently, but we'll get there in the end. And future for me is just to try and keep growing, expanding, and helping more people all over the world. And again, for me personally, is just keep learning, because like I want to be a student of the game. You never know anything until, like, if you think you know everything, you know nothing. You have to keep learning. It's like I learn more and more on a daily basis. So that's my final piece of advice to give to everyone, is like, don't be egotistical to think you know anything, because as soon as think you know everything, you know nothing.
I know, and just to add to that, the saying that I love is the more you learn, the less you know.
Yeah,
And it's like, what the hell? Like, you can never acquire all the information, which is actually the exciting part about it. So,
100%.
Charlie, my last question then to the listeners, what is the one thing they can do that will have the biggest impact on both their health and happiness?
It's a very good question. I was just like exercise daily. So be two things: exercise daily. So even if it's just going for a walk for an hour a day, and then secondly would be, which will interlink into this, learn to breathe correctly. And that's a big one that I've been on a mission to improve recently. And if your breathing is dysfunctional, that's going to undermine absolutely everything you do on a daily basis. So when you peel the layers back to that, like it's incredibly important.
I'm gonna have to just quickly ask one more then. So you say about breathing, like, am I not breathing right now? Like, is that not keeping me alive? What do you mean? I know what you mean, but what do you mean by breathing?
So most people will breathe in terms of through their mouth, but mouth. Ideally, we want to be trying to breathe through our nasal cavity using a diaphragm and fully expanding like our rib cage. So it actually has an effect on mobility as well. So actually be able to take full deep breaths in, and our body to actually be able to like filter through any toxins or anything through our nasal cavity. Nasal breathing also has a huge effect on your blood pressure via the nitric oxide production. So that makes a big, big difference.
Cool, Charlie. Thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'll put all of your details in the show notes. And guys, until next time, stay healthy, be happy, take care.